one thing that we've all got in common is that each one of us has got a story somewhere in the background. There's some suffering, there's some hardship. If it's not you, it's your family member or your friend, and that's what we all got in common. And what I love about Ash's story is that she's a living example. It's not just theory. So word on Ash, we love you for that. So just one quick thing. If you don't have a business card, by the way, there is these feedback forms which we would love you to fill in at the end. We do always want to get these events and make them better, so we love your feedback. But you can also use it as a business card. So to put in the bucket, that's going to be handed around later. Okay, great. So on to our next speaker. Due to popular demand, we've got Michael coming back this year, and he's Michael Hitchcock. He began his real estate career in the early 1990s, starting as an agent and eventually becoming a sales manager and coach for 2 national real estate franchises. He made a huge impression on us last year, and I look forward to hearing him again.
Is it working? Yeah. Testing, no, not on. Not work, there we go. Testing 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. If you're a billionaire, then it's 1 billion, you have to hope and be positive. So imagine this for a while, that you don't have to canvas, you don't have to push for clients, but you rather attract clients. And I don't know if that's something that you guys are experiencing at the moment, but the idea of having a unique selling proposition is something that can do it for you. Who here can say that they have a unique selling proposition? The lights are blinding. Anyone have one? Like to share it? So a unique selling proposition, or your USP, is something that is unique to you. It's like your thumbprint. It's something you can say and nobody else can say. And it's the key to actually making a change in real estate, where you're not doing the day-to-day slog, and you're not having to chase people, and you're not having to actually negotiate your commission, where you get top commission and people actually look for you. So it has to be unique, and it has to be something you can say. So I did a bit of research before, and just chatting to agents, I think most of the USPs that I see are area specialists. Any of you here area specialists? So if you see in a seller and you have 10 area specialists in your area, do you stand out as someone who has a USP? Obviously not. So what I'm going to discuss today, and I'm going to give you some big company examples, because I want you to get the principle. Once you know the principle, you'll be able to apply it to real estate. And I'm going to give you some real estate examples. But the credit goes to 2 gentlemen, Jack Trout and Al Rees, who wrote the book Positioning. They actually invented the word positioning. They also did a book called The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. And in the day when they did it, they had a lot of marketeers saying it doesn't work. But all your top companies today are using those principles. And there are a number of principles, but I'd like to focus on one. We don't have time to go through all of them. And the one principle is, it's better to be first than to be the best. And we often try and be the best. We try and be better at what we're doing. We try and do what we do in a way that we stand out. And what that means is we all end up shouting. So it's the loudest voice that gets the attention. So if you think of how the mind works, what Trout and Rees says is, in any category, it can be motor cars, can be real estate, there are ladders in the mind that hold about 7 different items. So if you take motor cars, you might have Bugatti at the top, you might have Pagani Zonda, you might have Ferrari. But when you get to 7, the mind basically stops. Everything else is ignored in that category. So the idea is, if you're not on the top rung, and if you take real estate, if you're not the area specialist who's maybe been there 30 years, who's actually now selling to the children's children, and that rung is taken up, then your best move is to start a new category. and run your own race. And we'll show you how that gets done. So I'd like you to think of rental cars. Just shout out to me if we look at car rental companies, who can think of a couple of rental companies? We're looking for 6 or 7. Avis, Hertz, Budget. Okay, so we've got about four at the moment. There's probably 200 rental companies. So why do we get to 4, 5, or 6, and then we kind of run out? It's because this is how the mind works. The mind gets very confused very quickly. So in that category, the mind says, that's full. And if you're trying to get into a category that is full, like the area specialist, very bad strategy, because the mind's just going to forget about you. So it's better to be first than to be the best. So let's have a look at a few categories that are first. And what happens is, once something's first, it stays in the mind. You're not going to change that. So who was the first person to walk on the moon? Who was the second? Sorry? Okay, so one person knew, but most of us didn't. So who was the first person to break the 4-minute mile? Roger Bannister. Who was the second? Who cares? Second is not remembered. We remember number 1. Now, you might be remembered if you number 2 or 3 or 7, and Avis did this very well. Hertz were the biggest in the market. So Avis didn't try to compete, and this is the whole thing. Competing with competition is bad, because you're competing with someone who is already been in that ladder, and they've been doing it for a long time. It's better to run your own race. So if you look at Avis, they were very clever. They didn't compete with Hertz, because Hertz were the biggest. So they became second. They said, we're not the biggest, so we try harder. Why go to Avis, to Hertz when the queues are long? Come to us, our queues are shorter. And that helped them go from loss to profit. But they took number 2nd on the rung. So that's also a good strategy. So if you look at these categories, all the categories, whether it's computers, whether it's real estate, they always are breaking down into subcategories. So computers became, big computers became mini computers, and they became laptops, and then you have phones, and then you have Galaxy tabs and things like that. So why 7? If you think of it, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, the 7 wonders of the world. 7 is in everything because it's what we remember. So have a look at your market. You need to do some research and have a look at the area, wherever your USP is. And what a USP is not is that I love people. I'm a people person. We love helping people. We're hardworking. We're honest. You need to have that as a starter to get into the industry. So my friend has a dog that loves people, but he's never got 7.5% com. So that is not a USP. That's what everyone does. What could be a USP? So let's have a look why first stays in the mind. So if you look at computers, IBM way back were the 800-pound gorilla. They were the biggest. So wouldn't it make sense that IBM being the biggest, that they would probably be the biggest in software? But they weren't. Microsoft came along and they became the biggest in software. Now, Microsoft, with all their money, 100+ billion, all the technology they had, you would think that they would be the guys who would win the battle for search. They had their own search engine, but they weren't. Google came along, 2 guys who now became 2 of the richest people in the world. They started Google. And you would imagine that Google, with all the data that they got, people using Gmail, people using their map tracking, that they would be the next to win the social media market. But they didn't. Took a guy in his dorm room at Harvard to open Facebook. And so it goes on and on and on. Why? Because when they look at something like Google, and Google tries to now do a social media company, the mind says, no, you're not social media, you search. You were first in the mind of the people as a search. So you need a new category with a new name. The reason these companies failed is because they used the same name, the same tools, and they just used line extension. So no one was interested in Google social media. It had to be new. Now it's the same with you. If you're trying to fill a gap of the area expert, but there's 7 people in your market that have been there for yonks, not going to work. So what do you want to do? You want to find a niche that is not served. You want to find a pain point that a client has that you can start that new niche. And then you've got to obviously let people know, and that's part of your marketing. But now your marketing is basically one message. You're not trying to be everything to everyone. So what could be something you could do in real estate? You're a smaller person, you've just come in, and those ladders are taken up. Well, you could take a couple of cluster buildings, and you could focus on them, and you could get to the point in a year or two where, and when I started my career, I had a couple of buildings in Bedford View, and with sectional title, once you get to know people, they see you every week on show, so you get to know everyone in the center. They get to know you personally, so when they sell in, they come and talk to you. So it becomes easier because they know you and you know them, and as you sell, you just get more leads. So I focused on a couple of buildings, and then I put out a flyer that said I sell 70% of all the units sold in these complexes. That's a unique selling proposition. Why? No one else could say it, because they were busy selling in 30 other complexes. But it means you have to narrow your focus, make your business smaller, dominate that area to make it bigger. But often in real estate, we don't like doing that. In case our area goes quiet, then we need to be there, there, and there. Now, obviously, you'll get referrals that you can do, but your main focus has got to be on there. What's another thing you could do? You could list properties, and I think you guys would agree, if you list a property at market price and you go on show, you promote it, and everything else is overpriced, what happens? Your home sells first. It should sell in 30 days. If you've got a home that's well priced and everything else is 20% higher, that property should go in the first couple of weeks. So now what are you building? You're building a USP that says, that no one else can say, is my average days on market is 22 days. If you look at the transfers, you'll see the average in the market is 120 days. That is a USP, and the USP must be of value to your seller. Now, is that of value to save them 2 or 3 months? Sure it is. No hassle, no problem. And you could then, if you've priced correctly and you market it correctly and you get 2 or 3 buyers, you'd get higher than market price. Any of you experienced that? You get 4 buyers, they all fight for the property, and you end up getting over mandate price. So you could now have a USP that you let people know. It could be your tagline. It could be, if it must be sold in 30 days and 2% over market price, then give me a call. Would that make me stand out? No one else can say it. But it means you have to start, as Stephen Covey says, you've got to start with the end in mind. That means don't take mandates that are overpriced. Let them be open listings. Learn how to do a presentation where you can price counsel. When? The day you take the mandate. I don't get involved too much in the selling side, but I do get referrals. The last 2 were done within 8 days because they were priced right. They were put on a bidding type platform, and we had about 14 buyers. So that becomes a USP, but you've got to build towards it. But there are many other unserved areas in the market where you can actually build to get your USP. So 2 questions you have to answer to when you're dealing with a buyer or seller. Why must I buy it, and why must I buy it from you? If you can answer those 2, you're going to be the obvious choice. So now what happens when you do that and you send that message out where everyone's over-communicated to, you're going to get the attention of people who are looking for you because you have a unique selling proposition. So if you look at insurance companies, all of them, if it's Discovery, if it's Santam, they've all got a different attribute. I think it's Santam or Sanlam have got a heritage because they've been in business for so long. Discovery is 50% back on petrol. They've all got something different because they're looking for different clients. I think Budget gives you a special deal. King Price, I think you get 50% less and your premiums go down. So they're all looking at a different space in the market. But as agents, would you agree that most of us are chasing the same clients? And so now you're working and operating in a Red Sea, as they say when you, a blue ocean strategy. Instead of a blue ocean where you're the only one there, and everyone else must now compete and get onto the ladder. But once you're on that ladder, you stay there. It's very hard to dislodge in the mind. And that's the way the mind works. Seven items, and then it shuts off. So you can shout as loud as you want, but you're not getting in there because you're competing with people. So don't compete. Have a look in your market and say, where can I find an unmet need that serves a pain point of my client? It's got to be important to the client. So it could be time, it could be commission, it could be anything like that. So if you look at your market, go and research who's in your market. Find out who's there, who you're competing with. And if you find that you're not on that ladder, then start looking where you can shift and you can run your own race. And then you become the first one. And it's better to be first, as they say, than to be the best. We all go for better. No one cares about better. The iPhone is not a better phone than Samsung. But it has this cult following because it was first in that category. And so those people will buy it. And you can argue till you're blue in the face, but a Samsung, the technology is actually superior. And so in the market, often you'll find products that are not the best, but they're number one. They've always been number one. And if you look at line extensions, I think it was Bayer Aspirin. They were the first to actually have the patent, and then after that, other companies made. So if you look at aspirin, Bayer's the well-known. Who's number 2 in the aspirin category? So what I want you to get out of this is you must look at what category you're in. Let's assume you've got a headache or you've got back pain. You walk into the chemist and you see a big bottle that says medicine. Then you see another one that says good for migraines, good for lower back pain. Which one do you take? Are you going to take the bottle that says medicine, cure all? And unfortunately, as agents, that's what we are. We medicine. We do everything. We love people. We're hardworking. We're friendly. We're loyal. We're trustworthy. And we're area specialists. So I've yet to find anyone that's actually differentiated. There are some that have, just by virtue that they've been there so long. But they haven't actually articulated it in the mind. You've got to go out and actually impress it on the mind, because some first, if I ask you who was the first to, with an energy drink, most people will say Red Bull, but they weren't the first. They were just the first to impress it on the mind, but they weren't first. If you look at Google search, they weren't first, but they were the ones who took it to market with a fine point, and they actually got that message across. But when you're trying to be everything to everyone, you don't have the budget to market to everyone. If you look at Kentucky Fried Chicken, can you get a burger at Kentucky Fried Chicken? Do they tell you, come for our burgers or our McDonald's, our McFlurry or whatever? They've got their little niche. McDonald's is Happy Meals. Kentucky is Kentucky Fried Chicken, but you can buy other stuff. So don't worry that you are in a box. The key is you need one message to go out, and that one message must be what your USP is. Now, will you lose some people? Sure. You might lose the low commission guys. Who cares? But you'll get the people, and they will pay your commission because you get results and because you stick out in the mind. So have a look at who's in your market. Have a look at where there are gaps and try and fill that gap. And if you're not on at least number 2 or 3 on the ladder, I would suggest you go and get a niche. What do the Americans say? There's riches in niches. Drill down. Say, this is my market. Who can I work with? Can I work with first-time buyers? Why is it a good idea to work with first-time buyers? There was a guy in Centurion many years ago who used to go to developers, sell them the land, and then say, I will sell all the units. And I only work with first-time buyers, so I've got a list of like 500 of them from the last complex. So whenever it comes to getting that complex, he would get the mandate. I think he was making over $1 million then. I'm talking 20 years ago. So I hope you've got some value. I hope you understand the principle. And I hope you will look that next time we see you next year that you'll have a unique selling proposition. Thank you very much.